Hi, BJ Miller here, palliative care doctor, answering a few questions about grief. So one is someone asked, can you die of grief? Well, a couple of ways to answer that question. One is, short answer is it can sure feel like you could. Sometimes grief can be just unbearable. Grief is, just to set the stage here, grief is sort of the human response to loss. It can be death commonly, or anticipatory grief in advance of the loss or in advance of the death. Or we can grieve anything. We can grieve a loss of a role, or the loss of identity, or the loss of an object, or the loss of a relationship, you name it. Really, any loss can beget great grief. So one thing to know about grief is that it's absolutely normal, even an essential human process. It's a way for us to, over time, digest loss. And over time, with some effort, with some luck, with some time, we can find that the thing that is lost, the thing that is now gone, has a place inside of you. You have a relationship ongoing to this thing that you've lost inside of you. And that you're also very aware of what you still have. And in this way, you can be freed up to keep on living. There is no time limit on grief. It can take months, years. There is such a thing called complicated grief. And this is when grief starts to become something pathological, where grief, rather than helping you get through a loss or get through pain, or grief can actually become the source of the problem, the source of the pain. Complicated grief is more common in violent deaths, or in deaths with someone who had a complicated relationship that was unresolved. It is more common in folks who already have issues, deal with issues of depression or anxiety, or mental illness of any kind, or have substance abuse issues as well. So there's not a really bright line between grief and complicated grief. But if you're 6 months in and or more, and you're just you can just barely get out of bed, you might want to start thinking about reaching out to a psychotherapist. Complicated grief begs for help. Sometimes it means medication, sometimes it means talking. But anywhere along the way, you don't have to have complicated grief to benefit from therapy. So if you think you need help, I'd go for it. You can only benefit. So in answer to this question of can you die of grief? Well, like I say, it can certainly feel that way. This sort of altered state of grief can make you feel close to death, or like you want to die, or like something in you has died. Grief by itself, though, is not dangerous per se until we start getting into this thing called complicated grief, which starts looking a lot like depression or a lot like mental illness. Again, the line between the two is not very bright. When in doubt, just please reach out for help. There is no shame in getting help, especially through something as complicated or as difficult as grief. All right, thanks for listening.